In 2020, because of COVID-19, traveling is out, but there's no reason you can't meet old and make new friends at an Agile conference. The Scrum Master Toolbox podcast teamed up with Tom Henriksen to organize the 4th year of the Agile Online Summit, and you can attend for free. There will be networking events, lots of talks on important topics, and 8 amazing keynotes from Mary Poppendick to Alan Holub, Jeff Patton, who's the creator of user story mapping, Neil Killick, who's a no estimates pioneer, Jeff Watts, author of Scrum Mastery, a great book for Scrum Masters, Jeff Gotthelf, Bob Galen, and our very own Marcus Hammarberg, who's the author of the Bungsu Story, a great Agile transformation story. You can get your free tickets at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word. Once again, bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. All lowercase, all one word, and the link is also on the show notes. You can get your free ticket or opt for the full digital access that lets you keep all the conference videos forever. And for example, organize Agile learning sessions at work by watching those videos. You can get the full digital access at bit.ly/SMAOS 2020. But don't forget, there will be lots of live networking events, so I'll see you at the conference floor. Hello everybody, welcome to our Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week we have Rachel Macasek with us. Hi Rachel, welcome back.
Thanks, glad to be back.
So Rachel, on Tuesdays we talk about teams, but before we dive into that, we always ask our guests, what's the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
Yeah, it was hard to pick just one. I think early on, the one that helped me the most was the Phoenix Project, especially coming from manufacturing into software. It was really difficult for me because, in manufacturing, it's very visual in the sense of like you can see where opportunities are, where problems are. And in software, it's hidden behind computer screens and where engineers are working. So that book really helped me out. And it's told in a way too, where it's a story. So it's not very dry, which is super helpful. And then I think it's something that you talked about in my bio that I'm really interested is kind of like the power of the individual and how I can kind of support individuals more or have better conversations with individuals. And so one book that I'm really loving right now is Coactive Coaching. It's kind of like the Bible of coaching. It's kind of one of those go-to of how to ask powerful questions, how to listen as a coach, how to be curious. And so that one's been really fun to read as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's one thing that you would like to say to our Scrum Master friends, why getting deeper into coaching, and of course now you're studying coactive coaching, that's fine, we can focus on that. Why getting deeper into coaching has helped you, what would you say?
Yeah, I think the reason why I did this leadership coaching to begin with was I was getting so frustrated at times in, my journey as a Scrum Master of, working so much at the team level. It just felt like there were times where leadership would have this certain, reactive mindset that would really impact teams. And so it was like, yeah, we try to, do what we could with what we could control. But at some point we were always kind of like hitting a wall on something. And I was like, if only leadership could just fix themselves is
exactly.
The
they
thing
could
that
change.
I would say. Right. Yeah. You shake your fist. And so I was like, you know what, maybe, if I want to have an impact there, executive coaching might be a way where I could do that. And so started to look at different programs and ended up taking one through a program called ACT, and they work with Brown University here in the US, and really enjoyed it. But I think throughout that journey, as not only learning how to be a better coach, you also get coached yourself. And so I think, there's just benefits in having more self-awareness of yourself and your tendencies. I think coaching isn't something for just executives because you want to fix them. I think it's super powerful for all individuals to have that self-awareness and to really kind of understand what their values are and what their purpose is. And I found that I guess my hypothesis is working with teams is great, but I think you also kind of have to really focus in on individuals too and have them start to, you know, really have a little bit more self-reflection and awareness of how, you know, how they impact others on their team or outside of their teams, to really have this huge kind of cultural transformation, right? That usually we all come in at some point to do with companies that are, you know, trying to improve or quote unquote go faster. So I think being a scrum master, I'm biased, but I think you have to work on the coaching too and really being able to have strong conversations with individuals, because it's not just, you know, execute the scrum framework. I think there's a lot around culture and team dynamics and working with individuals.
After all, it is all about working with people, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. So, so yeah, that's my long pitch of why I feel like that's really important.
That's great. That's great. So next we talk about individuals as groups, i.e. the teams that we work with. And
Perfect.
and we are really interested in listening to your stories. They might even be from manufacturing, who knows? But tell us a story of a team that, you know, over time started developing this kind of behavior or pattern that ultimately led to problems. Tell us that story, Rachel.
Yeah. So at one of the companies that I worked for, they were going through this really large project and it wasn't going so hot. And so there was a lot of pressure, especially from leadership, to understand why this was the case. And the particular team that I was working on, I'd been with them for a few months, really great team, super talented, but they weren't, you know, they were asked to do something and we had started to do Scrum and they were really getting comfortable with it. And so, you know, based on our velocity, they were asked to do something and we said, hey, this is when we think we can get it done. And that apparently seemed impossible, according to some people on the leadership team, that like we were taking too long, that estimate can't be right. It should be able to be done in a couple of weeks was what the team was told. And so they ended up putting an architect on this team that I was working with because they didn't trust that our estimates were correct. And so behind the scenes, you know, this architect, myself, the engineering manager, I should say, there wasn't, the PO had left in the company and there wasn't a backfill. So we were kind of struggling with that too.
So you were kind of sharing the role?
Yep. Sharing is a good word. We were struggling, but we were trying to share it. Yeah. And so the three of us were really we were in constant communication and understanding, like, you know, could we get this done faster and or as fast as the way leadership thinks we should. And I think the architect was great because he really was a huge partner with the team and kind of was like, you guys are like spot on. It's a lot harder than, you know, it's perceived outside of this team to do this stuff. And so he was a great partner. But I think in like the whole evolution of this, the team has really lost trust in leadership. And there is a lot of back channel conversations where they were hearing how they were being perceived. And so like one team member decided that they wanted to leave the team and go to a different team. Was another team member who just, like, you could tell, completely became demotivated and shut off. And so like he was one of those people where, like, if he was super passionate about something, he would work day and night to do something. Now he was just working, you know, max amount of hours that I need to get my stuff done. And then I'm offline because I don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. And so you could tell how, as this went on, how the team just felt undervalued and it became this huge demotivator for them to get this work done.
They kind of resigned from giving their best?
A lot of them did, just because they were like, if leadership doesn't trust that we're being truthful or that we can get this work done or that it's going to be a good quality, and they're going to start, you know, giving us, quote unquote, forcing us to take resources, even though they loved the architect that they worked with. It's hard. It's kind of a punch to the gut that people don't think you're doing your job well, when in fact, like, it was a super talented team and it wasn't true at all. So
that kind of highlights one of the things that I think we all should have our eye on, which is the relationship of the team with
critical or very important stakeholders like leadership, but also it could be really people the team admires, right? So, whatever, like a senior contributor that has proven to be of use and of help to the team, and then suddenly they start showing signs of not trusting, and that might affect the morale of the team very much. But one thing that is interesting for me, though, to explore is how did leadership, specifically show that lack of trust? Was it just like, pushing back on estimates and ideas on how to develop, or like how did that lack of trust show?
Yeah, this was a pretty toxic culture. And so like, yes, it was for sure we don't trust your estimates, but there was some also comments made, whether it was to the engineering manager or to other people that would kind of make it to the actual team, and they would hear these things. And so I think the estimates was one thing, but I think some of the actual things that were said by leadership ultimately became the reason that frustrated the team and made them feel, I know psychological safety is such a buzzword, but there was none there at all. And it was, eventually I left that company. I don't know if it ever got rebuilt with that team, but while I was there, was the engineering manager, the architect, we kind of realized like part of our job now is try to protect the team from some of the stuff that's being said, because it's not healthy for them to hear some of that stuff.
Absolutely. That's actually a very good point, that sometimes protecting the team might be just helping them focus more on the work and their collaboration and less on what's being said outside the scope of the team. Because in that particular case, there might be nothing a Scrum Master can do, right? I mean, if management and leadership is making overt comments about the lack of trust in the team, it's probably that relationship is ruined probably beyond repair.
Yeah, and I think protecting the team was helpful. I think another thing that we did that I think helped was there was one critical point where it was just like a really rough week, and we happened to have a retro that week. A lot of the team was remote, so we just like, it was like kind of like a use an emoji. How was your week? Like throughout the week, what did it look like? And kind of just like gave them the ability to vent a little bit and show their frustration in a way. So it was like, hey, we know it's here. Like, there's an elephant in the room. Let's just talk about it and release it and get it out of our system and use this space to do that. And so I think that was important for the team too. They were all frustrated in one-on-one conversations. You were hearing it all the time. So I think leveraging the retro to be like, okay, let's just have this moment of like vent, talk about your frustrations. If there's stuff that we feel like we can do coming out of it, great. If not, I'm okay with like, normally I'm a proponent of like, let's have an output of a retro. But if we really just need this time to let off some steam, we did that. And I found that to be super helpful too. And then that way, coming out of that retrospective, out of that time, we didn't really necessarily continue talking about it because we didn't feel like we need to. We used that hour to let it all out. And then it was like, okay, back to work. Whereas maybe if we didn't take that time, it would kind of keep mulling that over. Yeah. Over and over again. So I think that was helpful too, just to give the team space to do that.
Great tip. Thank you very much for that, Rachel.
Yeah.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.